Washington Post is reporting that President Trump secretly used a different plane to evade a potential Iranian threat while leaving the NATO summit in Turkey last month. According to the Post, Trump boarded the old Air Force One jumbo jet in view of television cameras, but he was apparently secretly shuttled away just minutes later to a smaller plane via an airport catering truck typically used to load meals and other supplies pre-flight. However, Fox cannot confirm that Trump was aboard the catering truck seen here. The White House giving this statement saying, quote, "The new Air Force One is a state-of-the-art aircraft that has been fitted with high-level security protocols that ensure the safety of the president and his staff. As the president has said recently, there are many enemies of America who have their sights on him, and we use every tool at our disposal to address those threats." President Trump signing an executive order that calls for fewer childhood vaccinations and recommends splitting the MMR vaccine into 3 separate shots.
In many cases, we were requiring 72 jabs for our beautiful, healthy, lovely, delicate little children. Effective immediately, my administration is recognizing gold standard childhood vaccine recommendations for only 11 core vaccinations against the most serious and dangerous diseases, along with the MMR, which hopefully will be split up.
The current practice has the MMR vaccine given as one combination shot, and multiple routine vaccines can be given in the same visit. Trump's new executive order directs Health and Human Services to develop options for separate measles, mumps, and rubella shots, reassess the timing and sequencing of childhood vaccines, and present a plan within 90 days.
Now to this, new text messages released by Congress reveal Dr. Anthony Fauci privately raised concerns about COVID vaccines for pregnant women back in 2021. The messages show Dr. Fauci writing, quote, "I asked around a bit more and another issue came up that you need to be aware of. Since many people have significant cytokine storm and fever after the second dose, this theoretically could be associated with miscarriage in the first trimester." But just a month after sending that text, Fauci spoke to the public saying the vaccines were safe. Watch this.
Thus far, with thousands of women who are pregnant, having gotten the vaccine following the EUA, there have been no red flags of anything that anyone would be worried about. There are severe adverse outcomes for mother and baby during COVID-19 infection. Therefore, it is extremely important for pregnant women and women planning to get pregnant to get vaccinated.
I want my team to get into the comments right now on every platform. I'm talking to you, ALX, Ashley, Danny. I want the entire team to get into the chat right now and pin a comment at the top of the chat saying, this is going to be our public testament against Dr. Fauci. I want everybody to write, don't care how long it takes you. Maybe it'll be just a few lines. Maybe it'll be a sentence. Maybe it'll be a paragraph. Or maybe it'll be War and Peace. But write what Fauci did to you. Let's make this a public wall where we can inscribe and carve our grievances against Dr. Fauci. I don't know. And please see if we have Zach Lon. I would really love to get him on the program. I see Kara's in the chat. Kara, see if you can book Zach Lon. I sent you that today on booking. We're going to make this our life's work to get Dr. Fauci prosecuted. It's something that is going to be a important endeavor because what is happening right now is the largest genocide of the American people the largest genocide of any people in modern history via government medical institutions. This has happened before, but it's happened in different generations. This is our generation. This is recent history. Some of the stuff that happened in the Soviet Union, obviously very terrible. World War II, terrible stuff happening. But this is happening in our lifetimes. most people, like the people that I think the last World War II, there's like a handful of World War II veterans that are still around anymore. We're talking about our wars now, not the past, today. And what Dr. Fauci has now confirmed is, through his own text messages, is that he instituted, through deception and lies, knowing full well that the COVID-19 shot was 100 times, let's go ahead and check here with Peter McCullough, compared to the influenza shot, was 100 times more likely to result in fetal loss. 100 times. If you were to just do the raw math on that, you would find that 2 million babies were most likely lost here in America. You know, the Europeans knew that this shot was poison in the first place. Europeans stopped pregnant women from getting the COVID-19 shot. Our institutions didn't. And they knew. They knew. We now have their private messages. We're close friends with Ron Johnson, who released these messages. We're close friends with Rand Paul. We'll be having both of them on the show soon. We're going to be devoting our life's work, our mission here, to imprisoning Dr. Fauci. He needs to go to prison. He's 85 years old. He can still walk. He can still power walk with his wife. You see him wobbling around Georgetown. His ass needs to be in jail for whatever short years God still has for him on this earth. And then in hell, you can't plead the fifth. I'm angry this morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is a righteous indignation. This is my family. I want to show you this just simply as a shout out to my wife, who's a nurse. This photo was taken this weekend. And I have 4 beautiful, healthy children. My wife refused to get the COVID shot. She'll tell you straight to the camera, straight to your face, that she got a prophetic word from heaven about it. She's a nurse. She's in the medical industry. She certainly wasn't anti-vax at the time, but something really triggered her and tipped her instincts about this. And perhaps you had the same instincts. I did not get the COVID vaccine. None of our children got the COVID vaccine, or really any vaccine. And my wife drew a hard line. While she was pregnant with our first daughter, you can see her right here. This is Eloise. While she was pregnant with our firstborn, right here, beautiful Eloise, we were in Washington, D.C., the heart of darkness. It was the year 2020. COVID was rip-roaring, at least the PSYOP was. COVID was never really that deadly. It was the treatments that were deadly, in fact. And the pressure on my wife, the institutional pressure on my wife to vaccinate herself while she was pregnant with our firstborn was so withering, was so damaging, was so coordinated that it destroyed her career. She had to effectively leave her job that she had been at. She's working at the highest echelons of nursing and management of nursing in federal health institutions. She was forced out of her job. We were run out of the city. Her practitioners dropped her, shamed her. I was in these meetings. I mean, they were like spitting on her practically. We were run out of the city. Doctors wouldn't see us, like we were lepers. I'm sure the same thing happened to you. Did it? Let me know in the comments. We're going to put up the comments. We're going to put up the comments throughout the show, because we're going to have on the people who can actually potentially fix this problem on the program today. But we were in Florida. I mean, I'm broadcasting in Florida right now because of this. We had to seek sanctuary. We had to save our children. And so this is part of the reason. Of course, things got horribly dangerous as well on our block when they defunded the police. They did this all in concert, and it was this just confluence, this avalanche of death Thank God we were able to resist. And the true thanks goes to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and then also to the inspiration that my wife had to just simply resist. And just please close your eyes and remember this. If you were able to resist, then you are a hardened warrior. If you were able to resist the biggest psyop in human history, which is this COVID vaccine psyop, if you were able to say no to that poison and to spare your children, and I'm not trying to shame the people who succumbed to it, the vast majority of my family, so many people that I know and care and about and respect, they succumbed to it. It was withering. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Wartime propaganda, election propaganda, other type of social engineering propaganda. Nothing even came close. Trans movement or WNBA or whatever, Kamala 2024, Joe Biden, none of it scratched the surface of the sophistication, the corporate buy-in, the media buy-in, the institutional buy-in of the vaccination agenda and op. It was the largest psyop in human history, period, and it was deadly. And it, I believe, led to 2 million child deaths, which is a genocide of Americans. Again, Europe banned this, and the vast majority of countries around the globe banned this for pregnant women. Of course, you don't shove pregnancy is a very delicate thing. My wife and I had a miscarriage this year, in fact. And this is, actually exactly what you would expect with statistics. And it's too bad, and we've gotten through it, and we've done a lot of prayer and a lot of soul searching, and God is the author of life and death, and I'm at peace about that. We are not vaccinated and refused the COVID vaccine. But miscarriage rates are approximately 20%. Well, we have 4 children, and so there's your 20%. So that just is what it is. There's a lot of women have miscarriages, and a lot of families go through this very silently and don't ever talk about it. So we talked about it, and so we understand this pain. It's tough enough when it just sort of happens naturally, and that's just the way it goes. But if it happened because you were injected with an experimental therapeutic that the monsters that created it knew that this was going to increase the chance of a miscarriage 100 times for you. We'll go through the data here in just a second. That is a crime against humanity. That's on level with Hitler or Stalin or Mao Zedong, systematic genocides, full knowledge genocides forced upon you. And I want to just frame this correctly. This is like forcing every pregnant woman in America to take the abortion pill in the year 2020 to 2023. So you get pregnant, and your doctor, in order to get treatment for your pregnancy, they force you to take the abortion pill. In order to go to work, they force you to take the abortion pill. Maybe they lie to you. They tell you it's not an abortion pill. They tell you it's, whatever, placebo, sugar pill. But what it really is an abortion pill, and they know it. They know that. And they've now done this to all these women. Do you know a woman who had a miscarriage? I know 10 who had a miscarriage during COVID. Do you know a woman? Suddenly everything was astronomical. Also, children being born with horrible maladies during this time period to vaccinated mothers. This happened regularly. Do you know somebody like that? Let me know in the comment section. Do you know someone who experienced this? And so, yeah, it gets personal. It gets personal for me. I might not have this family at all. It could have been robbed entirely from me were it not for the grace of God. And still, when my wife was giving birth, they refused to treat her. First off, when they asked if we were vaccinated, when we said we weren't vaccinated, all the nurses that were attending to my wife stopped attending to her. We're American citizens, you jackals. You evil bastards. We're American citizens. What are you doing? My wife's in active labor. She's screaming. This is our first child. So it's like when it was your first child, you really, you get into a rhythm with these things later on when you have more kids. When it's your first child, there's a lot going on. It's very intense. And she's screaming and the doctors all stop. All the nurses that are attending to her stop. And then they leave the room to go get in all this protective gear. And then they swab my wife. They shove a nose swab up my wife, give her a COVID test, and then start doing vaccine propaganda on my wife while she's in active labor. I will never forget that for the rest of my life. It will be the driving force. There have been ups and downs and things that have frustrated me in politics, but nothing will make my blood boil like that. That will be where I return to in order to get my motivation. To stop whatever that was. It was patently evil, to stop that from ever happening again. And to put the people who did that in prison. My pronouns are prosecute Fauci, says Elon Musk. This is one of the most popular tweets in the history of X. 218,000 reposts. 1 million likes. My pronouns are prosecute Fauci. I should go ahead and repost it just for fun. Joe Biden colluded with Dr. Fauci to do this, to mass genocide American children. Again, American children. So few other countries around the world were as stupid as we were, where we were pushing this on pregnant women. Even the socialist, over-medicated countries of Europe, their free healthcare, their socialized healthcare, they weren't stupid enough to do this. They were like, whoa, wait, what? And of course we're not going to do this. Joe Biden loved it. If elected, I'll immediately reach out to Fauci and continue his incredible service. What's his service? Well, here's Dr. Fauci saying, don't you worry. Extreme confidence in the safety and efficiency of the vaccine.
And I want to encourage everyone who has the opportunity to get vaccinated so that we could have a veil of protection over this country that would end this pandemic.
Safe and effective. A veil of protection. Okay, what was the veil of protection that he's talking about? Fauci privately warned of miscarriage risks linked to COVID-19 vaccine while publicly claiming there was no issues. Is that the veil of protection? 2 million dead babies? Because that's what here's Peter McCullough, this is what it amounts to. Compared to influenza vaccine, compared to the flu vaccine, COVID-19 shots were 100 times more likely to result in fetal loss. And Dr. Fauci knew it. You can see it here in his own texts. I asked around a bit more, since many people have a significant cytosis storm and fever after the second dose, this theoretically could be associated with miscarriage in the first trimester. So they knew it. Not only did Fauci know it, Dr. Fauci went back and forth with the CDC director about the data corresponding to this. And then both of them went on TV hours later, declaring that this is something that all pregnant women should do. I mean, please pop this up. Yeah, go. We have the tape here. Well, Dr. Fauci is texting privately about how dangerous this might be for pregnant women and babies, which, of course, you should judge every society by how they treat the most vulnerable. That is the mark of a society. A lot of societies, a lot of caveman societies, a lot of barbarian societies that still exist today will leave a sickly baby on the side of the road. We won't do that. We try our best in a Christian-centered society to care for the most vulnerable. This is something that I think is a huge, bright star for the last 100 years of human advancement, that stillborn and child death in the developed world has effectively gone through the floor, except for when Dr. Fauci gets a hold of it and says this to all the women.
However, when you look at the unvaccinated versus the vaccinated, there is absolutely no increased risk of that. So because of that, the CDC and the ACOG, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, who used to say it is okay for for pregnant women to get vaccinated, to change now and say it is recommended for pregnant women. get vaccinated. So
It's not the only time that he did this. My screen, please. Of course, he did this constantly, telling pregnant women to get vaccinated. Approximately 20,000 pregnant women have been vaccinated with no red flags. But there were red flags. You can see it in his own text messages. This is just one of many text messages in the Dr. Fauci chain about pregnant women and the potential for danger. Well, I mean, the Hippocratic Oath is do no harm. So if there's a potential for danger, if you're going to kill the children of pregnant women, is one enough? Like, how many dead children are enough for you? Meghan McCain's here saying, put Fauci in jail. I am a woman who got pregnant. I got the COVID vaccine, and then I immediately had a miscarriage. And I'm telling you, I'm going through here. We got the Attorney General of Florida locked in and ready to go. I'm just angry today about all of this. So I've been just processing it and processing what the family's gone through. You kind of like try and compartmentalize this stuff. This is going to be a generational battle. There is no more important battle domestically than this. Fauci must be prosecuted, says Matt Walsh. Anybody who thinks Fauci is legally immune at every level, every state, for every crime because some preemptive pardon issued by Biden's auto pen is an idiot. He can be prosecuted and he must be. Well, that's the perfect note to bring on the Attorney General of Florida, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome back to the show the man who promised us last time he was on that he would be heading to Washington, D.C. to get all of the Fauci records. Rand Paul then subsequently said he looks forward to working with James Uthmeier, also on my show. Then, lo and behold, he does something remarkable that nobody ever counts on a politician doing, which is the Attorney General of Florida goes to Washington, D.C., collects all of the Fauci records, brings them back to Florida to his office, and is now reviewing those documents. So, ladies and gentlemen, the man who is carrying forward the torch here and has the wind at his back with all of this new available evidence of mass murder by Dr. Fauci, James Uthmeier joins the program live right now. Thank you so much for being back on the program, Mr. Attorney General. This has been a pretty disturbing revelation from Dr. Fauci's text messages. What's your take on this? What must be done here?
Sure. Well, every day it seems more and more damning evidence is coming out. We went up to Washington after the revelation came out where we now know Dr. Fauci privately, by the way, I don't even know that we should be calling him a doctor anymore, given some of these abuses, but, Fauci's privately questioning the safety and efficacy while perpetrating the greatest deception our country has ever seen. I had a great meeting with Senator Johnson up there. Moments later, it's discovered that we have thousands and thousands of text messages now. This is the first back and forth of many that will likely come out that further reinforce the notion that he lied to everybody. This was not an accident. This is not, a doctor got it wrong. This is a doctor knew full well that people would be hurt, that pregnant women, the most vulnerable, the most sacred in our society, could lose their children. This is the most horrific thing that our country has seen in a long, long time, if ever. So we owe it to people to ask every question and pursue every legal means of accountability. We can't right this wrong. We cannot give somebody back their child. We cannot give somebody back those final moments where they could not be with a loved one or watch their wife give birth to a child. We cannot give those back, but we have to do everything we can to find accountability. Fauci and his biomedical state, they need to pay for what they've done.
So please, could you detail, and not to get, I guess, ahead of any prosecution or potential prosecution charges or indictment, but could you please detail what evidence that you have? How fruitful was your visit to Washington, D.C. in your meeting with Rand Paul and Ron Johnson? Both of them were on the show right afterwards telling me that they had met with you.
Sure. Well, we've got thousands and thousands of files that we're going to have to continue going through. We've got to build a case, build a case that's ready for the court of law. Obviously, everybody's angry and frustrated with what's happened, but we've got to follow rules of procedure and evidence, rule of law that we as a society want to have. And we're going to do everything we can in Florida. We're looking at every single statute in Florida law, civil and criminal, for potential liability. I've got my best lawyers, all hands on deck, working on this. We've got to be thorough. We've got to be sound and effective, but we're going to work quickly because we know people want answers and they want accountability.
I think generalizing this and zooming out, there's like sort of the Aaron Brockovich body of law, right? Where it's like you have to do no harm. You can't be knowingly poisoning people. You can't be knowingly pushing falsehoods when you know behind the scenes that something could be damaging, whatever it is. Lead in the water, asbestos. There's these giant bodies of law and institutions in the country that are set up to make sure that we're doing the best to secure the American population and make people safe and effective, right? Is what they were constantly saying. This seems to be pretty clear cut that not even Fauci was confident that this COVID-19 vaccine that he was pushing with the full force of the state, with the force of violence, right? The force of violence of the state. And that's what it is. When they say get this or you'll lose your job, you'll go to the bread lines, you won't be able to provide for your family. That's violence. That's not to mention the miscarriages. It just seems, Mr. Attorney General, that that's could that be a potential avenue to pursue here? That they knew they were pushing something that was flawed. They did it anyway.
It certainly looks like there should be liability and that there should be damages. You've got deception, you have lies. We issued a subpoena last week, and one of the things we're really focused on is possible self-dealing. While being a government official, yes, and having a lot of legal immunities, Dr. Fauci went outside of that government role, and he was looking at book deals. He was asking people, his staff, to work on awards, monetary value awards. He was looking for fortune and fame, not the safety and well-being of the American people. And I got to tell you, this hits very close to home, Benny. I mean, we were there, I know, like you, our first child in the beginning of 2020. And I remember the doctors and the nurses and everybody pressuring my wife to get vaccinated. We had not been vaccinated, telling her that if she got COVID during the first trimester, it could create, life-altering symptoms that might hurt the baby. And, they pressured, they belittled. I mean, it wasn't an option. They kept forcing it. And I'll be honest, I got weak at one moment and said, well, maybe you ought to just listen to them. They're the experts. They wanted us to believe they were the experts and they were looking out for us. And I thank God that she's a stronger person than I am. She said, no, I am not doing it. I don't know what's in those mRNA jabs. I don't know what the side effects are going to be. Thanks be to God, she gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. But so many other people out there fell victim to the pressure. And I know there's a lot of very angry women out there today, and rightfully so, because he took something special for them. And, mark my words, we got to go through all the elements of every aspect of Florida law. But there will be no stone left unturned when we are done. We will look at every aspect of Florida law to seek accountability.
So what is your message to the Maha moms out there, to the mothers who had a miscarriage? Meghan McCain has been just going off on X about her miscarriage and that she was pregnant and then got the COVID vaccine and instantly had a miscarriage. And I started looking to see if we could find other cases like that. And there are not only hundreds, maybe thousands in my timeline alone of fathers and mothers lamenting that they had a miscarriage immediately after getting the COVID-19 vaccine. What's your message to them? How can they seek some cold comfort in knowing that there's at least some that are willing to pursue justice here?
Sure. Well, my message, first of all, is you're not alone. You are not alone. There's a lot of people out there, and everybody was branded as conspiracy theorists when we asked questions, when we doubted, when we talked about seeing heightened rates of miscarriages and that it could be related to the vaccines. Everybody told us that we were conspiracy theorists. Well, no, the conspiracy was that which was perpetrated on everybody out there. that which was perpetrated on the people of our country. So I can't bring the children back. I cannot make it right. I'll never be able to do that. But what I will do is I will fight to answer every question we can to get to the bottom of what Dr. Fauci knew, what was discussed with the executives at these big pharmaceutical companies, all the way down through the healthcare industry, through the practitioners that were pushing safety and efficacy. Nobody said there could be side effects, there could be miscarriages. Nobody said you might lose your child. You should at least be able to assess the risks yourself. They did not talk about that. No, they went above and beyond to pressure women, to pressure moms into getting these mRNA injections. And they need to pay for it. So my commitment is we are going to get every question we can answered. We are going to put Dr. Fauci in the hot seat. We'll have other third-party subpoenas that'll be forthcoming. We're going to figure out what exactly was discussed all the way throughout the medical community, how widespread were the lies and deception, and we will seek everything we can from civil damages to criminal liability if the elements of the case are presented.
Final question for you here, Mr. Attorney General. Maybe we can zoom out and focus on your work protecting children in the state of Florida. I have a feeling this is going to be the vein that you take here, especially given these grotesque revelations that Dr. Fauci knew that he was harming children in pushing this vaccine, didn't tell the public. If there was even a hint from the institutional medical establishment that this vaccine could be dangerous or deleterious to pregnancies, I mean, it would have hit like a bombshell at that time. They had to hold the side up entirely and almost like with a religious zeal say that this was safe and effective and that every pregnant woman should take it. I know dozens of women that had some type of horrible side effect, either losing the baby or having the children, but then there were huge complications with the children afterwards, and there's just skyrocketing. You've really made a name for yourself by protecting kids in the state. The death penalty for child predators and for pedophiles, very important. Cracking down around Disney and Orlando and some of those places with some of the freaks and creeps that like to hang out there with all the children. That's been heavy work going after DEI in the institutions. Do you see this as an opportunity to signal to the American people that we are the party that cares about life, that we are the party that cares about family, that you're not allowed to do this to our children. We're going to take this on like the transgender issue. We're going to use this as an opportunity to draw a line in the sand for families and women who are pregnant.
We prioritize protecting our kids number one in Florida. My team knows it. That is every day our number one mission, to protect our kids. They are the most vulnerable in society. They cannot fight for themselves. We've got to be there. They are gifts from God, and we're going to do everything we can to protect them. This week, we actually arrested, we'll be announcing before the end of the week, our 2,000th child predator since I've been in office. This is not including a lot of other predators that are caught, through local state attorneys that do the street level crimes in their own jurisdictions. Most of this comes from our initiative we spearheaded to really focus on the internet and social media and the efforts that these predators are using to go through platforms and go after kids. And they're so smart. They will wait weeks or months. They will talk in a dialect that sounds like a child. They will get children to drop their guards and start to share personal information, locations, whereabouts. And in the worst of cases, we see actual physical abuse. And in Florida, yes, we are bringing back the death penalty for predators that want to sexually assault young children. I know there's a Supreme Court case up in D.C. we're going to have to go and take head on. We're ready to do that. We've got the best legal team in the country, and something that vile and horrific deserves the ultimate form of punishment. So we'll do everything we can. A lot of people have told me, don't waste your time. Dr. Fauci has countless immunities. Government officials are protected. Congress granted immunities to Big Pharma, which was a terrible idea. You're never going to be able to prove any case. Well, I reject that. I think the people of this country, they're looking to Florida. They're counting on us to lead as we always do. They're counting on us to find accountability, to hold people responsible, to bring justice, and we will do absolutely everything we can. We will fight for what's right and just.
I just wanted to quick follow up on that. Like, huge compliments to you. I saw this morning from Clay Travis. All the Florida big cities combined have a far lower murder rate than Chicago alone. So that would be Tampa, where I live, Orlando, and Miami all together. The murder rates in Florida have collapsed. Florida is now the safest big state with multiples, millions of people in the country. So congratulations, Mr. Attorney General.
I tell you what, it's not that complicated. It requires hard work, but it is not complicated. We love our law enforcement. We give them the tools to be successful. We have their backs. When they arrest bad guys, we prosecute them. We've almost doubled our prosecution rate since I took office. Our conviction rate is up well over 50%. We're handing out longer sentences than ever before, more child predator arrests than ever before, trafficking arrests more than ever before. And lo and behold, we're at an all-time low crime rate in Florida. And we have big cities that are bringing in capital and tourism and international visitors, things that typically correlate with crime. We've proven it doesn't have to. If you enforce rule of law, if you put bad guys away, if you're tough on crime, it works.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. I deeply appreciate your fight on this. Obviously, it's a personal battle. You try not to get too personally invested in these things, but you're a human being after all. And
thanks for your search for truth. Not enough people have been willing to do it. It hasn't always been the most popular, but I think you and many out there have been vindicated. So thanks for searching for truth.
Family is a great motivator, man. You know, you look at your kids and you're like, what kind of a world am I going to leave them? So you can be silent when you're dead, but while you're alive, you have an obligation to speak out. And so thank you for fighting for this. Hopefully more attorney generals take up the case and the cause, and that Dr. Fauci will spend the rest of his life at the very least in a state courtroom or under subpoena, and at the very best in jail. So thank you, Mr. Attorney General. Godspeed, everybody.
Some others are working on it too. So hopefully we'll have some good updates in the coming weeks.
Excellent. Other attorney generals?
Yes, sir. Yeah. I look, there's Dr. Fauci's been, he's been deposed in other states where he may have now contradicted himself. I think there's other legal avenues that are out there. I still think the federal government, could have some avenues given the ridiculousness of the auto pen pardon and, the breadth given that there was no crime presented at that time. Why did he need a pardon if he hadn't done anything wrong? So I think there's a lot of investigation to come forward in Florida and other states. And again, hopefully we can get something done.
Excellent. So you like potentially uniting with other states in this? Is that something that happens? I know that AGs team up every once in a while.
We're working together. We'll share information and evidence. Some states have broader authority than others. Again, we're going to use every tool. I think most of us in the AG world, we realize how important this is. This is not a one state thing. This happened to the entire country. This was a deception on all of the United States of America. It upended our entire way of life and took away things from people they will never get back. People want justice. They deserve it. So we've got to do everything we can to pursue that.
Godspeed, Mr. Attorney General. Thank you so very much.
Thanks for having me.
Sometimes you just get angry, man. Sometimes you just get angry. It's a righteous indignation. We're thankful for the partnerships that we have here on the program that help us fight every single day, help us fight for life. There's not many pro-life companies out there. Patriot Mobile is one of them, and they're pro-life. They're the only Christian conservative wireless provider. They're the backbone of what we do here. We're traveling with them constantly. They're in our pocket every single day. We use their mobile Wi-Fi hotspots. They've been a game changer for us. And quite frankly, we're just proud to be supporting a company that supports what we believe in. And, well, the first thing that we believe in is life. That's the first thing in our founding documents: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Without life, you have none none of the rights that we are entitled to by God. We are endowed by our Creator with these rights. It's not given to us by the government, and it shouldn't be taken away by the government, like Dr. Fauci took away the right to life for millions of little babies. Is sickening. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, support people who support life. Go to patriotmobile.com/Benny. Call 972-PATRIOT. Promo code Benny for a free month of service. patriotmobile.com/Benny. Just constantly support companies that are supporting you and supporting our mission here, which is life and life more abundantly. That is the Lord's mission. It's also the mission of our next guest today, Laura Logan. Just a packed show today. Laura Logan is somebody who's constantly been fighting the PSYOP in the media and the lies in the press. I believe, and I wonder if Laura agrees with me here, that this is the single largest PSYOP, coordinated, centrally organized, using the media and all American institutions, all American corporate power, all American business power to force this vaccine, like they tried to do to my wife. She had to quit her job because of this, using the military at the end of a gun with the threat of violence. That is what the government has, a monopoly on violence. And they used it to violently push this vaccine on all of us. They robbed us of our lives. They forced me to move 1,000 miles away from my home just to be rid of them. Ladies and gentlemen, Laura Logan, who sacrificed so very much to fight for truth against these evil psyops around the globe, joins us live right now. Laura, thank you so much for being back on the program.
Well, Benny, thank you very much for having me. Yes, I was listening to, one of the things that has never left me with COVID was, do you remember those videos of people trying to say, to reach out to their loved ones in nursing homes? And they took all those elderly people and they put them in solitary confinement effectively. And so one of the statistics that just gets overlooked constantly in this conversation, because there's so much to look at, but one of it is that all the elderly people that went into early dementia because they never felt human touch again. And, that really struck a chord with me because I was in Liberia at the height of the worst Ebola epidemic in history. And I went to a frontline treatment center. And I remember talking to the doctors and healthcare workers that were going into the confirmed ward where it was just described as Armageddon, right? And the worst thing about it was that you could have had sometimes newborn babies, little kids, 2-3 years old, sometimes 6, 7, 8 years old, and they never felt human touch again. The only people that came in were in these spacesuits. And so you think about, solitary confinement is the most radical, extreme form of punishment for people in incarceration. And we did this to elderly people all over America, drove them into madness. That's literally just one thing that was done. So, yes, I agree with you that righteous anger, it's very hard not to feel that.
Why was America the target of this? So, they didn't force pregnant women in Europe to lose their jobs or to get the vaccine. That was something the Europeans said, no way, no way, right? Getting pregnant is a very fragile and tough process as it is biologically. We're not going to introduce some type of experimental therapeutic into that process. And the Europeans were right, of course, about that. Why the Americans? Why were we the target of this?
Well, first of all, you can't even begin to have the conversation if you don't recognize that COVID was a bioweapon. Okay, it was a bioweapon that we knew our intelligence agencies were tracking from the very, very beginning, because number one, China only builds bioweapons labs. And in case you hadn't noticed, they don't come up with cures for cancer or drugs that help people heal. Their people die in abject poverty from the most basic diseases, and they couldn't care less. So U.S. intelligence and the U.S. government knows that all China does is bioweapons facilities, because this kind of research was deemed deemed to be so unethical and so dangerous, we farmed it out to China, right? Through Ralph Barrick and the EcoHealth Alliance, Peter Danzig, North Carolina Chapel Hill University. So we farmed it out through them, through these contractors. So we knew from the very beginning, when you see that name COVID-19, that's the 19th iteration of a human engineered bioweapon. That's what the 19 represents. This is the 19th form of this particular bioweapon. So, I mean, it was very, very obvious. We know what the bioweapon did in America. Donald Trump had just survived beginning of 2019. He'd come out of the fake Ukraine impeachment trial, and the U.S. economy was through the roof. Lowest unemployment amongst Black people in years, lowest unemployment amongst Hispanic Americans. I mean, you could go on and on and on. And people had finally had enough of the Russia BS. Trump was going to sail through the second election with an absolute majority. And they had to do everything that they could to shut it down. The other thing is that viruses do not replicate identically in hot and cold climates. Like a virus, it's just the way it is in nature, that it spreads differently in a hot climate versus a cold climate. But this bioweapon spread at the same time, at the same speed in hot and cold countries, which tells you, it told every doctor who, knew anything about this. It told scientists, it told people who were bioweapon specialists. I spoke to many of these people. They knew from day one, this is engineered, this is man-made, this has been released. So, but in the United States of America, right? That vaccine that went all over the world, you had to have an emergency to get an emergency use authorization for the vaccine. You had to have it. And as we all know, has been exposed now, they couldn't get an EUA if there was an existing treatment, which was ivermectin. Ivermectin was available worldwide in third world countries, first world countries. Every farmer had it. Every rural community had it. Every city had it. It was cheap. It was effective. If they knew that if they used ivermectin, they could never send out this kill shot, which is what they wanted to do. And so they used it as a weapon. Now, there were countries like Israel, by the way, where you were not allowed even outdoors. You couldn't go to a beach. You couldn't climb a mountain. You couldn't be out in nature. I mean, don't forget, Benny, this is the drug where they actually said that if you haven't taken this drug, you should not be treated at the ER. That's what they said in America. So they forced this bioweapon. Other countries like Russia said, we don't want your bioweapon, okay? We don't want whatever you've done with this kill shot. We're going to deal with this internally. We're going to do it our own way. But, what was really exposed in all of this is the power structure of the globalists. Because you had countries like Tanzania, their president, this is a small country in Africa, right, with no power, no influence. So their president was a doctor. He was a medical doctor. And he asked initially, he knew that this was fake. And so he asked for 10 tests, and he used those. It was famous at the time. They used one on an apple. They used one on a goat. They used one test on a desk in a room. And the vast majority of them came back positive for COVID. So he resisted the vaccine from the very, very beginning. And this president, who was in I believe it was his late 40s, 48 years old, mysteriously died of a heart attack, with no history of heart problems, no health issues. And of course, what happened, his successor who came after him embraced the vaccine, and they rolled that out in Tanzania. So there was it's been well documented now what Agenda 2030 was doing, and they were running pandemic simulations and all the rest of it. This was a bioweapon that was developed by the globalists for use at a later date, and they rolled it out early because Donald Trump needed to be stopped, in their view.
Do you believe that this is why there's been so much reticence and institutional friction against actually going after Dr. Fauci? Because you can go back into the record and find Dr. Fauci in charge of the biolabs with the Patriot Act funding, in charge of development of bioweapons. His names are on the documents. The website's still available at the Pentagon 1.0, 2002. You can archive the site and you can see it. Dr. Fauci, of course, had major leakage throughout his labs in America. This funding was paid for with Patriot Act dollars. And that Dr. Fauci was in charge of all of this, right? I mean, I don't think people quite understand how easy this mystery is to solve. Do you think that it's because of the intel agencies and their culpability here?
What does the mob do when their bag man is picked up? Right?
Got him loose, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like if you look at it, if you look at Dr. Fauci, this is not his first rodeo. Read RFK Jr.'s book. I knew about a lot of that stuff. I'd investigated it before his book came out. And so when his book came out, I was like, oh, hallelujah, right? Like, I'm not the only one. There's other people, Del Bigtree, all of these people had studied this and knew this. Dr. Fauci, there's a letter that was written about him by a very famous gay rights activist. And he literally says that Dr. Fauci is a merchant of mass murder, right? Because they figured out, the gay community figured out that what Fauci did later with remdesivir, claiming that remdesivir was the drug that could save you from COVID, when remdesivir was actually poisoning people who had COVID, right? He did the same thing with AZT, which was the drug that they said would save you from HIV. And actually what it did was it mimicked the progression of HIV. So people thought their loved ones were dying from HIV, but they were really dying from AZT. And then if you go back, NBC, when they used to be a real news organization, it was either, I think it was in the 90s, it might have been the late 80s, but I think it was the 90s. They did a huge expose and a series of stories on how Dr. Fauci was conducting experiments, medical experiments on orphans, and not just any orphans, because by their metric, right, Benny, the lives of little black orphans versus Hispanic orphans, those count more than white orphans, right? If you'd been doing it to little white kids, maybe, today they wouldn't care. But back then, they actually did real journalism and they really cared. And it was an outrage that he was taking the most vulnerable little children in New York and he was doing medical experiments on them. Not to mention the medical experiments that he was doing on beagles and all the other animals, right? And so Fauci's history actually goes back a long way. And here's one of the key things that people don't talk about enough. What has the United States been doing at Fort Detrick, Maryland? What they've been doing, that used to be an offensive bioweapons program. It was that was shut down by Richard Nixon in the late 60s. And what did they continue? Oh, we now have a bioweapons defense program. So we don't make bioweapons, we defend against them, which is the sleight of hand that governments always use. And what people don't ask enough is what were the original Nazi programs that were brought under Operation Paperclip from World War II, from the death camps, from the Joseph Mengeles, and they were continued at Fort Detrick, Maryland, and at Dugway Proving Grounds in Utah and other places where people like Fauci, right, have continued the work of the Nazis. And one of the reasons they went absolutely, can I say batshit crazy on your show? Okay, they went absolutely batshit crazy when I said on Fox News that Fauci says he's science. They asked me, they said, Fauci was on Margaret Brennan's show, Face the Nation, saying, I am science. If you criticize me, you criticize science. And they said, what do you think of that? And I said, to Pete Hegseth and Will Cain on Fox News, I said, well, I talked to a lot of doctors and other people. I said, they don't see Fauci as science. They see him more as Dr. Joseph Mengele. Why did that matter so much? This is partly an answer to your first question. It mattered so much because of something called the Nuremberg Code. You want to know why in Europe they weren't able to force people the way they did in the United States, which is ironic because we have a Bill of Rights and a Constitution, right? But it was because of the Nuremberg Code, because as a result of the evil, the pure, abject, unspeakable cruelty and evil of Dr. Joseph Mengele, the Nazi doctor of death, and what the Nazis did in their concentration camps, you have something called the Nuremberg Code, which was set up to prevent things like Mengele and those Nazi programs from ever happening again, forcing people into medical experimentation against their will. And you know what happened right after I came out and made that comment about Fauci and Mengele? Is the head of the European Union, she came out and said, maybe it's time for Europe to talk about ending the Nuremberg Code, because we need to have mandatory vaccinations across Europe. So what they were doing in America, they planned to do in Europe. The Nuremberg Code still applies here. It's the basis of informed consent. That's what informed consent is all about. And let me tell you, Benny, we don't know our history enough, because when I looked into this, I found a unit in the Japanese military, Unit 731. I would urge people, I don't even think that you can speak publicly about some of the things that they did in Unit 731, experimenting on mainly Chinese prisoners, but also others, Russians and others. And we bought that research, just like we brought the Nazi doctors over. We gave a free pass to them, and we gave a free pass to the Japanese, who unleashed their bioweapons on Chinese in Manchuria. And we have backed medical experimentation. So the reason they protect Fauci, the Democrats protect him because they don't want to admit that he was used as a weapon to steal the 2020 election from Donald Trump. But much bigger than that, at much higher levels beyond Anthony Fauci and Donald Trump, are the people who are fully in favor of medical experimentation on human beings, who are quite in favor of population control, of reducing populations, of sterilizing young girls, the Bill Gateses of this world, who have sterilized young girls from Sudan all the way to India with their vaccines that are supposed to help people. And beyond him to his father, who was a co-founder with Margaret Sanger of Planned Parenthood, who were talked openly about genetics, right? And about these programs to reduce the black population. And I know a bunch of people that work in pro-life organizations, especially in the black community. And they are very angry still about the fact that you have all these abortion clinics in black neighborhoods and you don't have them at the same intensity and degree in other neighborhoods, right? And that's because we're talking about the same programs that Margaret Sanger and Bill Gates' father talked about. These eugenics programs are the same things that the Nazis talked about. Okay, it's the same thing all the way through. And what they don't want you to do, the reason they call every person that looks like you and me a white supremacist and a Nazi, is because they're the real Nazis. They've been covering for the Nazis, protecting the Nazis, continuing Nazi programs, funding Nazis in Ukraine, arming Nazis in Ukraine, and honoring Nazis in the Canadian Parliament, and so on and so on and so on. So in one sense, Fauci is the bagman for the mob, right? And he knows too much, and they got to make sure he doesn't go down. But in another sense, this goes far beyond Anthony Fauci. And if you peel back the layers on COVID, it will reveal what they did with HIV. It will reveal what they're doing with other bioweapons. Perhaps Ebola was a bioweapon, because I'll tell you, when I was on that frontline treatment center, the local people in Liberia said to me, where did Ebola come from? Like, where does Ebola come from? And I brought an American scientist who was with me, because I was doing this for 60 Minutes. We were reporting for 60 Minutes. And I said, ask him. He's a scientist. He knows. And he was a lovely man. He explained the whole connection between the bats and zoonotic diseases and how this crosses when people eat the bats. It comes into the human population. And these grave diggers, you know what they said to him, Benny? It was absolutely fascinating. They looked at him, they listened, and they looked at him. And then one of the guys said, he said, my father ate the bats, and we know Ebola. And my grandfather ate the bats, and we know Ebola. And his grandfather and father ate the bats. So what they were saying is, for as long as we have been here, we have been eating bats, and we never had Ebola. So where did it come from? Because you know what? The grave diggers on the front line of the worst Ebola outbreak in history did not believe that this came from bats. They didn't buy it. So you have all these people across America who say, oh yeah, it came from the wet market. It came from the bats. No, it did not come from the bats. It is a human engineered bioweapon. And Dr. Fauci, their little doctor of death, he was the main guy that was doing all their dirty work for him. And this is the guy who sleeps well at night, knowing that pregnant women have died, manipulating the data. And by the way, just like reporters at CBS, I just read a thing they did before I came on, to see how they were reporting it. And they're literally justifying it. I mean, women in their first trimester died at rates matching the vaccine rate of women in their first trimester. That's an actual study that they have just chosen to ignore. Absolutely chosen to ignore. I don't know when they went so far and lost their way so badly that journalists are willing to run cover for scientists who preside over the death and suffering of millions of people for political and personal gain. If that's what you call journalism today, then my God, righteous anger doesn't cover it.
I know that we are up against a hard out. I know that you are also a mother, beautiful children, and this must mean so much to you. And I just want to perhaps end with your perspective as a mother about what does this mean when you see that these pregnant women were forced to take this therapeutic, whatever you want to call it, experiment. They were forced at the end of a gun. The state used violence. We'll take your career. We'll take your medical assistance. This happened to me. This happened to my family. This happened to the Attorney General's family that was just on. Happened to everybody. What is that operation? This was 100 times more likely to cause a miscarriage than the typical flu shot. Some studies say that this resulted in 82% miscarriage rate if administered in the first trimester. What was that operation? Did they know that? Was that the intention? What is your research or your instinct tell you as a mother?
Well, I'm a mama bear, Benny. Okay, so if you want to go right for the jugular, you go for my children, right? That's the same. That's a kill shot. And so it enrages me. And more than that, I am lucky enough to have my children. I did not give them the COVID shot. I regret vaccinating them at all, because now that I know what's inside these vaccines and how much harm they cause. But so I would never, ever do that again. But I can't imagine what it's like for a woman who was one of these women who lost their baby. And remember, some of it was stillbirths, right? Some of it was birth defects. Some of it was abnormal placenta. I mean, it caused all different kinds of abnormalities in these women. And just think about the level of betrayal, because for many of these women who signed up for the clinical trials, they believed they were doing a greater good, something for the good of humanity. They believed everything that they had been told, right? And they were being deceived. So, I mean, to me, it's the absolute embodiment of evil. I am Sicilian, part African, right? My family came from Sicily to Africa. So, it doesn't take much to get my fire raging, but I've learned to temper it over the years because you got to take a breath and you got to look at it. But my heart breaks. My heart just breaks for those women. And what about the young girls who may never have normal pregnancies because of what was done to them? All the abnormalities to the menstrual cycle of young girls. I mean, we're only looking at one part of this. But, I know personally a young girl who just couldn't stop bleeding after she had the COVID shot. Every time she had a period, she was bleeding and bleeding and bleeding to the point she's having to go and see the doctor. And then I started looking into that because of her. And that was not uncommon. There's also tons of data on that. That's another thing that they hit. But what about all the kids that Bill Gates was made sure in Sudan and places like that were disabled with his vaccines? I mean, these people are absolutely evil. They remind me of the Oxford University study that was done, when they were still trying to maintain the global warming climate BS scam. And they said, all these people are going to die because of the cattle in the world. If we just put a tax on meat, right, we can save the planet from the methane from cows farting. We can save the planet. And what did they recommend? They said, well, with this tax on meat, about a third of the world's population will die because they won't be able to afford meat. And most of them will be in third world countries. But what are you willing to do to save the planet? This is the kind of nonsense ideology that they use to justify mass murder and mass human suffering. And it's absolutely unforgivable.
It's unforgivable. That's right. Thank God that there's no Fifth Amendment protections in hell. And the best part about being a Christian is that eventually God will have his justice. And so there's some cold comfort at times, but we're still striving for justice on this earthly plane. We think that that's something that is a good balance in the Christian life. And we should strive for that. We thank you, Laura, for being such a truth teller in all of this. And that history lesson about the Nazis. Goodness. Everybody follow Laura Logan. You probably do. She's got millions of subscribers across social media. But if you want that red hot Sicilian truth, well, then go ahead on over and follow Laura Logan and her incredible reporting and her documentaries that she does. Godspeed, Laura. Thank you.
Thank you, Benny, so much. Nice to see you.
Thank you. I see you. We appreciate Laura spending a little extra time with us. She's, well, somebody who is somebody's a firecracker. I think my grandmother would call it. Man, I love having her on the show. I love having her. I love a guest like that. That's just like has that fire and can just go, right? It's just like, yes, this is exactly what we're all thinking. You wonder why she's been so successful in her career. I want you to be successful in your life. I want you to make sure that you are investing or putting away in a secure capacity for your future. That means, of course, staying medically healthy, but also means staying financially healthy, investing in wise things like physical assets, precious metals, invest in gold, Advantage Gold. Can help you beat that inflation that is eating away the cost of everything. We had that big debate last week about the cost of a burrito. The cost of everything in life has 2x'd the cost. We ran the numbers. The cost of everything, a car, a home, all groceries, all basic staples of life. In the last 20 years, every single one of them have gone up 100% or more. And so, got to tell you, like, there's something else that has also gone up in value, and that is gold. Gold right now is at a very attractive price. You should have a look. Be a great time. If you're 59 or older, you don't have to be sitting in cash for your retirement account. You can move part of your 401k or IRA into gold-backed, tax-deferred, penalty-free gold today. It rose 65% in 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, now's the time. Text Benny to 85545. That's Benny to 85545. Get free gold investment kit and learn the simple IRS-approved way to move your 401k and IRA into physical gold, tax-free and penalty-free. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I guess we started the show with this little news topic. I wanted to maybe jump in. I don't know. I just hop back to my screen real fast, Klein. Just makes me angry watching this. You're not alone if this happened to you. Everybody in my timeline right now is sharing their stories about what Dr. Fauci did to them. There is no more important prosecution. Obama, Brennan, Clapper, Comey, all of that. Letitia James, yes, I get it. Fannie Willis, yes, I get it. Good. We've been cheering those on. I think Dr. Fauci is probably the single most important prosecution in the country for the sake of humanity. The pardon of Dr. Fauci is federal only. It would not apply in a state law. If somebody took the vaccine in Florida or Texas or had a miscarriage, Fauci could be prosecuted under that law for manslaughter. Fauci really should be on trial for mass murder and face the death penalty. That's exactly right. Fauci knew the COVID vaccine caused miscarriages and forced pregnant mothers to take it. This is a murderer. Fauci is a mass murderer. We've been saying it on this show. I'm a paramedic. I tried to warn people about this, COVID-19 shots. I saw 9 miscarriages in one shift after the shots rolled out. 9 dead babies in one shift. 9 mothers grieving the loss of their child. One shift. That's not even counting all the other side shifts and shots that came out. And yet they forced this shit on pregnant mothers. They forced this on moms to keep their jobs. They forced this on everyone. They used violence. Below is the text from Anthony's phone. They knew. I'm angry about this would be an understatement. They knew. My wife is a nurse. She was pregnant during the pandemic. Her best friend, also a nurse. She too was pregnant during the pandemic. My wife, a nurse, pregnant during the pandemic. She and her husband had been trying for a long time. This was their first baby. Oh, this one's going to rip your heart out. Rip your heart out. They were both well into their pregnancies at the hospital that they worked for and started mandating their full-time employees get vaccinated, just like my wife's hospital did. The hospital was pushing the vaccine so hard and the rhetoric was so crazy that they were both worried that if it would even deliver their babies if they were not vaccinated. Yeah, we went in unvaccinated into a DC hospital, the nice hospital in DC, a place called Sibley, and they began by refusing us service. This is exactly what they did. The nurses practically walked out of the room when they found out we weren't vaccinated. This is how scared they made people. My wife and I decided immediately that there was no chance that she was getting vaccinated while carrying our baby. Thank God. She was only a couple months away from giving birth, so she tried to stall. She filed an exemption. She was denied. She used whatever PTO she had. She quit her full-time job and went part-time. She made it through, gave birth to our beautiful, healthy, lovely baby boy, vaccine-free. My wife's friend was just a couple months away from giving birth when she succumbed to the pressure and got vaccinated. She and her husband had already set up their daughter's room. They named her Penelope. She was full term when she started having stomach pains. She thought that she was in labor. She went to the hospital and the doctor told her the baby was no longer alive. They induced labor and delivered a dead baby girl. Afterwards, the doctor told her that a blood clot had caused the death for her baby. When my wife's friend sees our son, she still gets emotional because her daughter would have been the same age as him. It breaks our hearts. We are still heartbroken. What happened during the pandemic was pure evil. And we need justice. So, ladies and gentlemen, pray for that justice. Our verse of the day here to get us through. Man, it's been a tough show. It's tough to relive all of this. Sometimes when you have actual trauma, right? Because that's real. Trauma is real. You just bull rush through it. You try and bury it. This isn't something that we should bury. We've buried too much. Too many people have been buried because of this. All right. Our verse of the day, and then maybe a quick poll that will be also positive to send us off. Luke 16:10. Whoever can be trusted with very little can be trusted with much, and whoever is dishonest with very little will be dishonest with much. Yeah. Dr. Fauci's been dishonest his entire career. He's never been trustworthy, yet he still kept getting promoted. He still kept probably my greatest frustration with Donald Trump. He was in an unenviable situation in the first term, was that he, succumbed to the media pressure to keep Fauci around. I think it was Donald Trump's instinct. It was actually Mike Pence that was pushing Fauci so hard. It tells you a lot about Mike Pence. But Dr. Fauci should not have been trusted. He should have been nowhere around these decisions. And this was one of the worst mistakes in American history and human history. Will Dr. Fauci be put in jail? Let's see here, ladies and gentlemen. Before 2027, 13% chance for Dr. Fauci. Our mission on this show is to raise that percentage. That is what we're going to do. We're going to endeavor to raise that percentage. 13%. We know that there are other states that are working together on this. We've been in communications with them. We've been talking. It's going to be the fight of our lives. But we're going to win, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to win because we march forward in Christ, our Lord and Savior, who defines what it looks like to have a life that is centered around Christ. What does that look like? Satan comes to steal, kill, destroy. That's exactly what Fauci did during COVID. He stole all of our lives, stole all of our memories, stole our parents from us, stole our children from us, stole our freedoms. He killed us, murdered 2,000 babies. 2 million babies just to start, but then millions more. And he just destroyed. He destroyed our freedoms. He destroyed, I think America will never be the same. Steal, kill, and destroy. What does Christ do? Christ comes to give us life and life more abundantly. Same verse. The difference. An abundant life or steal, kill, and destroy. So what kind of life are you living? What kind of life do you have? What are the fruits of your life? Make sure that you are doing the sign of the cross. Make sure you're doing the signs of Christ and the signs of goodness by having life and life more abundantly and giving life and creating life and providing for life. If you're older, make sure you're showing up for your kids, especially if they have little kids. Make sure you're showing up for them. And it is a Christian thing to do. It is evil. Do not be a part of that. It is the most difficult process and the most difficult time period to go through. Please remember how hard it was. Or are you killing and destroying? And that is the sign of the cross. That is the mark of a life for evil or for good. It's your boy Benny. Thank you for marching on with us into the victory that is assured. See ya.
Where the truth gon' be, faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to life. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.